In 1929, a decade after the end of the First World War, which had killed and wounded tens of millions of people in Europe, a book came out that predicted even greater devastation for European society in the years ahead. In his book, The Revolt of the Masses, Spanish philosopher José Ortega y Gasset predicted that the rise of fascism and communism would cause a catastrophe far greater than any chaos or violence in human history. This prediction turned out to be correct. Just a decade later, Nazi Germany, driven by fascism, started the Second World War, which caused far more casualties than the previous war. Even after the war ended, many people in other countries lost their freedom and suffered under violent communist regimes. But what's important is that the dangers Ortega y Gasset saw in the society of his time were strikingly similar to those in our society today. What I'm about to tell you might make you uncomfortable because it's about all of us, about you, about me. According to Ortega y Gasset, in traditional societies, the modern public didn't exist because transportation and communication were underdeveloped. People lived in scattered communities, each with its own distinct identity. However, with advances in technology and the acceleration of social integration, a unified public emerged, sharing similar mindsets and tastes. Ortega y Gasset argues that the masses are not defined by a specific class. In other words, money is not the defining factor. In his view, what he calls the masses permeate the whole society. Whether they belong to the lower, middle, or upper class, or are part of the working or intellectual class, the masses are a mix. They are defined by their mindset and lifestyle, not by their wealth or occupation. Ortega y Gasset identifies roughly 4 key characteristics of the masses. First, they don't think deeply about civilization. They treat it as if it were a natural phenomenon. Nature, after all, occurs on its own, while civilization is artificial, created by humans with a specific order. When that order is disrupted, civilization is bound to disintegrate. However, the masses don't consider the conditions that sustain civilization. They simply enjoy its products. They drive cars, attend concerts, and shop at grocery stores. But they don't reflect on the complex systems behind all of this, nor do they realize that these things could vanish if those conditions deteriorate. These conditions are the result of human effort and systems, but the masses treat them as if they were naturally occurring, as if they were given to us. In this way, Ortega y Gasset argues the masses are like primitive people. They take the phenomena around them for granted, much like early humans in nature enjoying the products without understanding the forces that make them possible. The second characteristic of the masses is their indifference to principles. They focus on the end product, not the underlying principles behind it. This isn't just true when it comes to enjoying food or new products. Ortega y Gasset argues that in modern times, intellectuals are increasingly being replaced by the masses. Even so-called educated experts are often producing knowledge just like machines without considering the deeper principles behind it. As academia has become more specialized and fragmented, experts have come to view their ignorance outside their field as totally acceptable. With few exceptions like Einstein, Ortega sees most academics as mere cogs in the system, mechanically producing knowledge. In contrast, those who truly advanced, such as Einstein, did so by looking beyond their own specialization, listening to great minds in other fields, and broadening their thinking. They questioned the fundamental principles of the world itself. However, today, many who are labeled intellectuals have lost the ability to think in terms of principles. They have become close-minded and passive. The problem is that many people are highly skilled in one area and offer opinion on society based on their specialized skills, but they actually lack deep wisdom in life and the world. The third characteristic of the masses is their dissatisfaction. They don't think in terms of principles, instead, they treat what they have as natural. So, when something they take for granted disappears, they react strongly. If their favorite TV channel goes off the air, or if the grocery store runs out of an item, they immediately become angry without reflecting. They don't try to understand why it happened or listen to the analysis of someone more knowledgeable. They just get upset. In this sense, Ortega y Gasset compares the masses to a spoiled child. When something they're used to is taken away, they throw a tantrum, expecting someone to fix it. The fourth characteristic of the masses is self-satisfaction. The masses have lost the ability to recognize anything greater than themselves, so they believe their way of life is the best, or that the best life can be achieved by acquiring higher positions in the given value system. For example, today, everyone aspires to be rich. People think wealth is the highest form of human existence, and they can't imagine anything better. This is why the masses lack real respect for good people. They can't accept that someone might be qualitatively better than them. Not only do they fail to recognize superior individuals, but they also reject the existence of superior values. For instance, Ortega y Gasset observed that the modern masses often engage in pointless bickering because they refuse to respect the principles of rational debate. Rather than submitting to universal reason that transcends their own views, they remain self-satisfied and close-minded, believing only their own perspective is correct. The self-satisfied masses are unwilling to truly solve problems. They are passive because they don't see the possibility of improving beyond their current state, so they remain stuck in their narrow perspective. They focus only on short-term solutions that maintain the status quo, not on real changes. We've been looking at an analysis of 1920s European society. What do you think? Aren't there striking parallels with today? Ortega y Gasset criticized the fact that instead of persuading others based on deep insights into fundamental principles, politicians now simply appeal to the popular opinions of the moment. He argues that people have begun to claim a right to mediocrity. In modern democracies, this right to mediocrity has been exaggerated, and certain opinions are treated as having authority simply because they represent the majority. Ortega y Gasset calls this a decay of morals. Without universally recognized principles to guide us, people have become anarchic, with each person selfishly asserting their own views. The real problem is that actually everyone is becoming part of the masses in modern society. That is to say, the elites have no longer bear the responsibility of providing society with superior values. Since no one explores the realm of higher values anymore and just settle for the present compliantly, people eventually experiences a sense of emptiness. Human life is about carrying a burden and fulfilling a purpose. If you lack burden, any law, value, or standard, life quickly loses its meaning and becomes empty. People whose lives feel empty will try to fill that void by seeking something which brings meaning back. Because there is no stable, superior value system, people begin to embrace superficial appearances and seductive ideologies. According to Ortega y Gasset, this is what fascism and communism offer. Powerful systems that seem to fill the void of a life that has lost meaning. His idea is that, having lost sight of higher principles, the masses would increasingly crave such inflammatory, authoritative systems. Today's 21st century society looks similar. What has replaced fascism and communism is blind materialism. In the complete absence of a higher value system to give life meaning, money has become almost the only purpose. Also, extreme groupism poses a threat to our society as well. People who uncritically accept a particular value of one's own group and making it a mission to eliminate the opposing faction are becoming increasingly common. This seemingly easy, tyrannical group behavior is now the meaning of life for those who have lost their way in the void. Then, how could he solve this problem? Ortega y Gasset argued for the re-emergence of the nobility in modern mass society. What does this mean? Does he suggest we should abandon democracy and return to the authoritarian aristocracy of the past? No, Ortega y Gasset firmly believed that liberal democracy was the best political system ever created by humankind. The nobility he referred to was not someone who inherited privilege by birth, but someone who earned their reputation through merit. In Roman times, the term nobiles was used to distinguish those who had risen through their own efforts, as opposed to those who inherited power. For Ortega y Gasset, someone who inherited wealth and privilege without any merit of their own was not a true member of the nobility. A true noble, in his view, is someone who gains authority through personal effort and achievement. Ortega y Gasset argues that the modern age needs a leader capable of overcoming limitations of society, someone who could establish universal values and duties for the new era. This person would need to possess a high degree of political wisdom and provide society with vision of new rules, which the masses would have to submit to. However, the submission Ortega y Gasset speaks of is not passive. It is an active process. Only someone who is genuinely interested in understanding the principles that govern the world can recognize the authority of another who demonstrates superior insight. A person who is indifferent to such insight cannot discern who is superior to them and, therefore, cannot submit voluntarily. Instead, they either follow the existing system uncritically or bow to power when forced to do so. Thus, Ortega y Gasset's argument for the re-emergence of the nobility implies two conditions. First, a figure of superior wisdom and charisma, and second, the recognition by the people of that figure's superiority, leading to voluntary submission to their leadership. So, what lessons can we draw from these arguments? I believe it's unrealistic to expect that in a so large and complex democracy like ours, just one heroic figure will emerge to change everything. I don't think Ortega y Gasset necessarily argued for a single ruler. Instead, there could be many great individuals. And what matters most right now is that we develop our own judgment. No matter how remarkable someone is, if we lack the discernment to recognize other people's capability, heroes won't stand a chance. The superficial and hypocritical respect to the masses will not lead to meaningful change. A truly thriving democracy is not one where the majority automatically holds power, but one where the majority is willing to reflect on its own qualifications.